Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's live at 8 o'clock. Tonight, we are continuing on with our series around what to include in your safeguarding audits. And we're looking tonight at the particular area around training. Now, there is a whole raft of things to consider here, but we're going to look at my top 5 areas for you to consider when you're looking at training needs. If you're here live with us, give me a wave, let me know you are here. And if you've got any questions as we move through this session, then please let me know in the comments below. I'm looking very bright, and apologies for the massive reflection of my glasses. I'm not entirely sure what's happening there. But if you're here, let me know, give me a wave, say hi and ask any questions that you may have in the comments below. Okay, so I'm Kate Young. I'm the founder of the Safeguarding Association, and this evening we are exploring training considerations as part of your safeguarding audit. So there are 5 areas for me when it comes to training that you need to be considering. So the first area for me is you, as safeguarding lead, have worked very hard to put safeguarding at the heart of your organisation. For me, when you are looking at training needs, you need to be thinking holistically. So not just in terms of your safeguarding team, but the other areas that affect safeguarding in and around the wider organisational community. For example, you might have security staff or estate staff who routinely undertake stop and search. You might have facilities staff, or you might have commercial staff who regularly interact with students who are coming in and out of college, or who are responsible for letting rooms or buildings in and around your organisation or school community. Now, it wouldn't necessarily be that they would ordinarily fall under the safeguarding umbrella, but think about excuse me, think about the wider implications here. So in terms of a stop and search, do they have the necessary training? Have they undertaken appropriate certification? Do they know what they can and can't do under those stop and search powers? Because if they get it wrong, that's an enormous thing to make an error on, and potentially could lead to criminal implications. So things like that you need to be considering. Also, in terms of the wider community, do they need to have more than basic awareness training? So that brings me on to my second point. When you've considered the wider school community, think about then, what is it that you need? So in terms of stop and search, you might need to check that their certificate covers what you think it covers. You might need to check that the external agencies that have been used understand the needs of your organisation. Think about what else you might need to cover. Is there anybody or any particular area that needs to have more interactive training? Maybe there is something happening on an infrequent basis, but that if you get it wrong is going to cause significant problems. Again, this isn't limited to your safeguarding team, who will have their own needs in terms of safeguarding training. Thinking about your safeguarding team, think about the issues that go on in your area. Are there things that are coming up on an increasing level that you and your team would be aided by having better information around? Maybe that is in relation to county lines. Maybe it's a CSE or exploitation issue. Perhaps there's a new community come into your area, and so you need to understand their functioning, how they operate, and some of the issues that are affecting them. Maybe there is another issue that's arisen that you need to make sure your staff are aware of and that they have appropriate knowledge around. Which brings me on to area number 3 you need to consider as part of your safeguarding training. And that is, what level of knowledge do your team, do wider staff members need to have? For some areas, that's really simple to answer. Everybody in the whole school community, if we think about education for a moment, has to read part 1 of Keeping Children Safe in Education. They have to know how to make a referral through to children's social care in the event that that needs to happen. So they have to have that level of knowledge. But it's maybe not so black and white in other areas. You might have lots of staff in a particular section of your organisation undertake particular training relevant to them, that maybe isn't directly safeguarding related, but perhaps touches upon it. How in depth does that knowledge need to be? How much information do they need? What level do they need to obtain? Are we looking at a level 1, 2? Or are you looking at maybe a level 3, 4? If you're looking at senior leadership, maybe you're looking at asking them to obtain something akin to a diploma in a particular area. Think about the roles that these people have, and also whether or not they are skills dependent. So again, it's thinking back to your risk assessment. What do you need to put in place? How do you mitigate any risks coming out of this? What level of training is going to satisfy you that the risks have been mitigated, or at least levelled off to a point? So that's number 3. What level of knowledge do your staff need to have? So number 4 to consider is, where can they get this training? Where can they get this knowledge? In some organisations, there will be a broad enough staff base and a wealth of knowledge within that community that can be tapped into. It may be that somebody in your team or in the wider community of the organisation is able to provide that training that will bring everybody who needs to be brought up to the next level at the right level. That would allow the person delivering the training to upskill themselves, as well as keeping everything in-house. Maybe you don't have that level of skill in your organisation, so you have to look at external resources. And when you're looking at external resources, there are a few things to consider. Are you looking at somebody who can deliver things from an external point of view, but come into your organisation and make it bespoke for you and deliver training related to you and your setting? Or are you looking for something more of an open course, or something that you can send a couple of staff on, they can upskill themselves, complete that training, and then bring back any necessary learning for the rest of the team that way? Maybe you are looking for something that means that staff can stay in their organisation without having to leave. At the moment, there is a lot of working from home where possible. So maybe you're considering looking at virtual live training, or maybe you're looking at an e-learning package. Whatever you're looking for, there are some due diligence checks you will need to do when you are considering what happens, particularly working with external agencies. The first thing to consider is, do they actually know what it is you need to understand? Lots of organisations will say that they can do a whole host of things, but their trainers perhaps aren't as recent in role, or maybe not as clued up on the circumstances as you may have hoped. Think about your learners' styles as well. Every learner will learn differently. Your staff are no exception. So you are looking for somebody who can facilitate training in a way that allows everybody to learn. There is nothing worse, and I can promise you from recent experience, than being invited into what you're hoping to be really interesting and insightful training, moved into an online format because of the current climate, only to find that you are sitting there for a 5-hour session with one 15-minute break in the middle, and you are lectured at through a series of PowerPoint slides. That is horrendous in a face-to-face situation. It's even worse in an online situation. So ask your facilitators, ask your training providers how they intend to deliver the training. What can they do? What are the styles that they're able to option? Do they have plenty of breaks? Do they have plenty of activities? Do they have lots of interactivity? And can they make sure that everybody understands or gets and has the ability to learn from that particular session? The other thing to consider is, oh, excuse me, got a tickle in my throat. The other thing to consider when you're looking at external providers is not necessarily too bad in this current climate, but geography. Are you looking for somebody to travel in, or are you restricting your search to somebody local to you? Restricting your search is understandable in terms of cost. However, if you restrict it too narrowly, you will miss a wealth of information that is hiding out there in the wider world for you. So take some time and look for the people that you want to work with. Good companies, good trainers will work with you in order to put a case forward if you want to bring them into the organisation. They will help you, they will put forward a proposal that you can use if you ask them to do so. So think about that as well. Don't just restrict your search and worry about the cost. Have that conversation and ask them to work with you if they are somebody you would like to work with, if they fulfill what you are looking for. Finally, point number 5, timescales. What are your timescales for this training to be completed? Some training will be 30 minutes, some will be 90, others could be a year-long training course depending on the level of skill that is needed and the level of knowledge that is needed. You will need to consider what your timescales are for any training to be completed. If you have a particular urgent issue, you will need to consider, is somebody able to fulfill that need within this particular time frame? Think about your statutory timescales as well. So when are people refreshing? When are people updating themselves? Do you have an easy way of noting when people need to refresh, when they need to update? Have you got a note of, or does HR have a note of when things expire? And also consider any upcoming events. So maybe you know there is some event coming up and you know that there needs to be a level of training or upskilling in knowledge around a particular issue. Maybe, for example, you are aware that there are to be a significant number of referrals. You've assessed your data from previous years. You know there's going to be a raft of referrals going around October, November time. But you also know that your more senior staff who normally are able to manage those cases have either retired or are retiring, or they've moved on to new settings and new organisations over the summer months. So you have a situation whereby you know from your data there's going to be an increase in cases, but on the ground your skill level has dropped. So you need to fulfil and find a way to upskill those staff that you have to be able to manage the cases that are going through. This could be, we're talking safeguarding, but you could move that onto a multitude of different scenarios. The important thing to remember is, as far as I'm concerned, safeguarding should sit right at the heart of everything you do. So therefore, everything thereafter needs to orbit nicely around your safeguarding issues. You know your organisation, you know your area, you know your staff. Give yourself some time this week, if you haven't done so already as part of your audit process, to consider where you may need to upskill staff, what holes need plugging, and where you can obtain that training if you need to. That's everything from me for this evening. I hope you have a safe evening, and I hope everything is going as well as it can be at this start of the new academic year. If you want to talk to me about any of your training needs, then please feel free to get in touch. You can either leave a comment below or send me a direct message, and let's have a conversation about how I can help you with any of your upcoming safeguarding training needs. Until next week, I'll see you then. Bye for now.